So if any of you guys don't know what Creepypasta is basically like a horror themed website. A lot of people will put like their horror themed stories on there. A couple of big ones that actually originated from Creepypasta that you've probably heard of, things like Slenderman and The Back Rooms and Jeff the Killer. And if you guys don't know much about Jeff the Killer, it's that one photo where it's like, it looks like a guy who's taking a picture of himself, but his entire face is very oversaturated and pale, and he has these dotted eyes. Now, I will actually talk about the whole backstory behind this picture later on, because this actually is a real person that took a picture of themselves. But keep this in mind, because Jeff the Killer actually plays a very big role in the true crime case that we're about to talk about. At 6 p.m. on April 6, 2016, police responded in Champaign County to a farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere.
911, where's your emergency?
I just killed my mother. And
What happened, sir?
I just killed my mother, and I need to go to the hospital. It wasn't me who killed her. It was Jeff.
What happened? Who did it?
Jeff. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is going to be really hard to explain, but I kind of have another person inside me. Like,
What happened to your mom?
He killed her. He snapped.
All right, are you able to say who's with you?
I am by myself, me and Jeff. But I swear it wasn't me. It was Jeff. Jeff is inside me.
Jess is inside you?
Yes.
Okay.
He sometimes takes control, and I have no control over him. I hate Jeff so much. He's gonna make me die in prison.
So as soon as police walk in, they are confronted with Donovan, who is curled up in a ball, crying on the floor with his t-shirt covered in blood. In the kitchen, there was also blood splattered on the fridge, the floor, the walls. And so they asked Donovan, "Is anyone else here with you?" And he responds with, quote, "Nobody that's alive." So the police then go out into the living room and they discover Donovan's broken wire glasses sitting on the floor right next to an empty red Solo cup. So police start to make their way upstairs, and when they see a trail of blood that's going down the hallway into the bedroom, it becomes very clear what happened. When police walk into the bedroom, they would discover 40-year-old Heidi Taylor lying on the bed with a gunshot wound to her head and over 60 stab wounds all over her body from a kitchen knife. Lying right next to her body was a black pistol, and on the floor was a cup of colored pencils, as well as like colored pencils all splattered around the floor. There was also ripped up white pieces of paper and then just regular white sheets of paper. When police walked in there, they also noticed a very strong smell of burnt marijuana, and sitting on the windowsill was actually a marijuana bowl that still had some left in it. When police went back downstairs to arrest Donovan, that's when Donovan kept on telling the police, quote, "I didn't do it, Jeff did." And when they would respond, who is Jeff, he would reply with, quote, "The best way I can describe it is he's my alter." Now, Donovan actually resisted arrest at first, and it actually took 2 rails, 5 straps, and handcuffs just to get him on the gurney and go to the hospital, because he actually had a stab wound in his right leg, as well as injuries to his face and his arms. When he gets to the hospital, he's actually questioned by a nurse that asked him what happened, and he says that he believes he has multiple personality disorder. And then he goes on to tell this nurse that he believes that there's a good side and a bad side to everyone, and his good side is named Donovan, but his bad side is named Jeff. And that day, Jeff told Donovan that he wanted to kill. So after Donovan was released from the hospital, he went to the police station for further questioning, and every time the police would try to ask him anything, he kept on saying that I didn't do it, Jeff did. And he goes on to say that Jeff isn't really a physical person, but Jeff actually lives inside of him, and Jeff is the one who killed his stepmom that day, not Donovan. Now, the police at this point don't really know if Donovan is actually telling the truth or if he's just trying to say things to fake insanity, because at the crime scene, when the police were trying to get him onto the gurney, Donovan had randomly said to the paramedics, quote, "Do you know about multiple personality disorder?" And then said, quote, "I have that, and his name is Jeff." And then he went on to tell the paramedics that Jeff has been living inside of him for about 3 months. So the police at this point aren't really getting any information on who this Jeff is, so they tried to get a better understanding of what happened the day of the crime. Donovan would go on to say that the day was pretty normal. He just woke up, he got ready for school while his parents got ready for work. He went to school, and then as far as school, everything was fine. The police even talked to like Donovan's friends at school, and even his friends said that Donovan seemed fine, and he actually seemed a lot happier than usual. So Donovan said that after he got home from school, he decided to take a nap for about an hour, and then when he got up, he started cleaning his room, and that's when he claims Jeff came out. Donovan said that he never really told his parents about Jeff because he was scared that they were going to think that he's either attention seeking or crazy. There was actually only 2 people that he talked to about Jeff, and one of those was his best friend Tatum, and then another girl named Madison, who was actually Donovan's girlfriend, but they never met up in person. Madison actually lived all the way out in Wisconsin, so they only really talked online, and they actually met online. But not all of Donovan's friends would go on to say great things. There was actually one specific friend that said that he had a really weird interaction with Donovan, where Donovan was just kind of, I guess, messing with this friend, kind of irritating him. So this friend said to Donovan, quote, "Have you ever been so mad at someone you wanted to beat them up?" And Donovan replies with, quote, "No, but I would stab someone." So when police talk to Donovan's best friend Tatum, they start asking her, like, do you think Jeff is real, or do you think this is just something that he's putting on? And Tatum said that she believes that he actually does have something of multi-personality disorder or some sort of split personality. And she says that she's never saw Donovan switch. She's only ever known him as Donovan, but she's actually texted with Jeff one time. And Jeff would go on to say in their text messages really scary things such as, quote, "I am anything but holy," and quote, "I am the devil's child." And there was even one time where Jeff, quote unquote, texted Tatum and said, quote, "I need your help to give me the courage to do it, to stab someone's face 67 times and do it over and over and over again." And Tatum would go on to say that Jeff would always make it known to say that he was the complete opposite of Donovan. Quote unquote, Jeff would always say things like, "Donovan is so soft and weak, and I don't really like Donovan. That's why I take over." And Tatum actually knew about Madison and would tell police that Donovan and Madison started talking to each other online about a couple months back, but ever since Donovan started talking to her, that is actually how he was introduced to specifically Creepypasta and the whole horror side of the internet. And it was something that Donovan and Madison would talk about, but also kind of feed each other on. And one of Donovan and Madison's favorite creepypastas was actually Jeff the Killer. And when the police found Madison's Facebook, they would find a bunch of art, like fan art that she had done of Jeff the Killer. So police know at this point that this wasn't just the working of Jeff. If Jeff got there and if Jeff had the motive to do something like this, it was probably because the actual household dynamic wasn't the best. So police then interview Heidi's best friend named Angie, as well as Angie's daughter, who had actually been Donovan's babysitter since he was 2 years old. So, as far as Angie's view on Donovan, she described him as a very introverted and quiet child, but she also said that Donovan was definitely a trouble child for Heidi. Heidi and Shane would often get into arguments specifically over Donovan because Heidi believed that about 3.5 years ago, Donovan just started to shut people out of his life. He started to isolate. So, she was really scared that maybe he was going through a depression and he needed help and to go to a doctor. And every time she brought this up to Shane, it was just always a conflict because he was, not really thinking that his son needed any of that. It was also during this time that Donovan would dye his ginger hair black and sort of have it like swooped over his face. He was also wearing a lot more like darker clothing and again, just becoming more distant. So Heidi was very nervous about this. And also another thing is that Heidi was more of the disciplinary parent because Shane was very easygoing. He loved his son. He was kind of the good cop while Heidi was more of the bad cop. And she would try to discipline Donovan, but none of this discipline would ever really follow through because if she were to, for example, take his phone away, Shane would just give Donovan his phone back. Or if she tried to punish him by taking away his gaming stuff, she would walk in his bedroom 2 days later and his gaming stuff would be right back up. And again, since Shane was kind of the good cop in all of this, like Heidi would try to discipline Donovan, but then the next day find out that he went on a shopping spree with his dad. And because of this, Donovan and Heidi would often get into a lot of fights because again, Heidi wanted to discipline him, but he wasn't used to discipline, so he was obviously fighting back. And as far as Donovan's babysitter, Angie's daughter, Donovan's babysitter would go on to say that she believed Donovan was very, very manipulative. He was very quiet and to himself, but he knew how to get under your skin and would kind of get a satisfaction out of that. And he mostly grew that satisfaction with his dad because he knew his dad through and through, and he knew exactly what to do and what to say to make his dad do whatever he wanted him to do. So going back to the day of the crime, when Donovan says that he had switched. So Donovan goes on to say that usually he tries not to switch to Jeff because he flat out says in the interrogation that usually whenever he switches to Jeff, Jeff is very violent and homicidal. So usually he doesn't let Jeff take over. But on this specific day, Donovan said that he just decided to let Jeff take over because what could happen? Like he was just at home, which is really weird because he just said Jeff is homicidal and violent. And so then Donovan goes on to say that once he was Jeff, that's when he decided to put on Jeff's favorite outfit, which was a white t-shirt, black pants, and gray boxer briefs. And once he was Jeff, that's when Donovan said that he would go downstairs, go to the kitchen, grab a kitchen knife, go to the bathroom, and then carve a smile on his face, like from the end of his lip to his ear. And when Donovan was found by police, he really did have these carvings on his face. And this is actually something that Jeff the Killer does. A lot of fan art that you see of him, he has a very carved in, exaggerated smile. And when Donovan is talking about this specific part, he even says, quote, "And then he carved this stupid smile on my face. I wish I could wipe it off. It looks so stupid." Which is terrifying because in that moment, it kind of seems like he cares more about like his appearance and himself other than like what he just did to his family and his stepmom. So after he carved the smile on his face, that's when he took the kitchen knife and went downstairs while his mom was upstairs. And he said that he sat down there waiting for his mom to come down so that he could kill her, aka Jeff could kill her. He said that eventually he was waiting there for too long, so he got impatient. So he just decided to yell for his mom and say, "Hey, can you come down here for a second?" So he said that when he said that, he went behind a door that was downstairs, kind of hiding. And then Donovan even says that although he didn't really like his stepmom as Donovan, and also Jeff didn't really like his stepmom, Donovan personally wouldn't do anything to hurt her, but Jeff would. wood. So Donovan said that Jeff and him, I guess, just kind of stood behind this door. And that's another thing that Donovan does throughout the interrogation. He says that some parts were him as Donovan and then other parts were Jeff, which is very, very rare in like multi-personality or split personality. You don't just like go in and out of personalities very smoothly. It's usually very painful when the host is coming down from its body so that like an alter can come forward. So that's not something that people could just do interchangeably. And as you'll see, as like Donovan starts to tell his story, he only mentions the parts that were good, that like he was Donovan in those moments. But then when it comes to the bad parts, like killing his mom, those parts were Jeff. But if he was interchangeably Jeff and Donovan, then wasn't Jeff and Donovan like also actively participating in the crime? So eventually his mother did go downstairs and Donovan was still behind this door, and he would tell police, quote, "I stayed behind that door and I kind of had a panic attack because I couldn't believe Jeff was really making me do it." So that's when Donovan came out from behind the door, and he said that instead of attacking his mother, he just ran up to his mom and hugged her. And she was kind of confused, but when she pulled away, she had noticed that he had carved those lines on his face. So she asked him, "Why did you cut your face?" And immediately Donovan says that is what made him snap back into Jeff. So immediately when she said that, he took the kitchen knife and just started to stab her. And as Donovan was stabbing her, he said that Heidi just kept on saying, "Stop, what are you doing?" and "Call 911. Heidi eventually was able to run upstairs to go grab her phone and call the police, but then Donovan remembered that there was actually a gun upstairs, so he kind of ran ahead of her so that she couldn't get to the gun before him. And when he ran ahead of her, he was able to stab her more and more times until eventually they landed into Heidi's bedroom, where she had both Donovan and her phone and was trying to call the police, but they continued to wrestle and he just continued to stab her, and even told the police that he stabbed her, quote, "I stabbed her everywhere, anywhere the knife could reach her." He says that he just continuously started to blindly stab her, and then eventually he was able to get both of her phone and his phone out of her hands, and then she fell onto the bed lying face down, so he couldn't see her suffer, and that's when he grabbed the gun that was on the nightstand and shot her once in the back of the head. He shot Heidi about a foot away from her head and said, quote, "We both wanted her to stop suffering. Jeff, likes to do this, but he doesn't like it. But he also doesn't like to see people suffer." So when police actually did an autopsy on Heidi's body, she was indeed found with one gunshot wound to the back of the head, as well as 60 stab wounds all over her body with a kitchen knife. And one of the stab wounds was so severe that the tip of the knife was still lodged into her skull when she was found. Hello everyone, it's still me, just thanking the sponsor of today's episode, Shopify. It's 2025 and a new year means new opportunities. Now, if you're someone who has always wanted to turn their hobby into a business, but always felt so intimidated by the whole process of building your own brand and marketing yourself, how do I get started? How do I even come up with a brand? How do I sell stuff to people? And thankfully, Shopify's got you. Shopify makes it simple to create your own brand, open for business, and get your first sale. Get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates, no coding or design skills required. All you need to do is drag and drop. Their powerful social media tools let you connect all your channels and create shoppable posts and help you sell everywhere people scroll. Shopify also helps with the details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you you think. Established in 2025 does have a nice ring to it, does it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/behind, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/behind to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/behind. And so after Donovan killed his mother, that's when he said that he just planned on going downstairs and running out the house to flee the scene. But as he was running downstairs, before he was about to leave, he was starting to sort of come down from all of this adrenaline, and he felt that his right leg was starting to hurt really bad. So he picked up his jeans, and that's when he realized a huge stab wound in his right leg, and started thinking back and kind of realized that, within that wrestle, since he again was just stabbing everywhere, he might have accidentally stabbed himself in the process. And so this is when Donovan says that at this time he was Jeff, but then once he noticed the stab wound, he immediately came back into Donovan. And that's when he called the police asking them for help because he was hurt and he couldn't walk. And unfortunately, when the police showed up, that's when they found Donovan, figured out what he had done. The police found Heidi, and then after that, they unfortunately had to call Shane, who was currently out of state at the time, like on a business trip. So the police called him while he was out there and told him what had happened to Heidi.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Nicholas.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Captain Loney with the Champaign County Sheriff's Office.
Come on, man. Everything's cool, right? Everything's okay. Please tell me everything's okay.
Let me ask you something. Where are you now?
Where are we at, man?
Are you driving right now?
No, I'm not.
Who's driving?
Adam?
Will you assure me that Adam will remain the driver?
Yeah, I can't drive right now. I gotta know what's going on.
All right, I'm going to tell you.
Scared, sir. I'm so scared.
Okay, sir. About 6 p.m. or so, maybe a little earlier, we responded to your house after receiving a call from a family member. There was some type of disturbance, and your wife has fallen victim as a result of that incident, and she's deceased.
Oh, God. I'm not processing what you're telling me here.
I understand. Take your time.
Oh. No. That's not what happened. It can't happen that way. It can't happen that way.
So Donovan claims that after he called the police, that's when he became Donovan again. And he said that he even heard Jeff in his head say, okay, I'm going back in your head now. I'm just going to let you deal with this. And Donovan told detectives, quote, he just left me hanging. Yeah, that's not fair. I would have never wanted to hurt anybody, to be honest with you. The only reason why we called 911 was to fix my leg. Now, according to psychologists on the case, as I said earlier, with multiple personality disorder, it's usually very hard for the host to remember details when the alter takes over. And usually the alter takes over for an extended period of time, and then the host is brought back in. It doesn't just happen interchangeably like how he was explaining. And it's also quite ironic that the parts that he's not proud of, such as murdering his stepmom, was supposedly Jeff. But then the parts where it kind of painted him in a good light, such as calling the police, those parts were Donovan. So the police ask him, okay, so what was the purpose of carving that exaggerated smile into your face? And Donovan said that it was actually Jeff's smile. So the police are a little confused. They're like, well, I thought this was your alter, but now you know what he looks like. Who is this Jeff? And that's when Donovan starts to explain who Jeff is to the police.
So cut to your face, what's the significance of that?
It was his smile.
It's what?
It was his smile.
What other character has a smile like that?
Jeff the Killer. That's where Jeff kind of came from. But that's just a story. It was a movie.
What's that story? I'm not familiar with it.
It's called Jeff the Killer.
What's it about?
It's about this kid. His name is Jeff. And he moved into a new house.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, long story short, Coke Pigs bullied him and beat him. So the first time he stabbed one, just to get away. second time, he was also defending himself. Because they came back again and they were trying to kill him. Then, like, he killed the leader, and then the second leader, well, the second person I threw, the second person named Keith, he set him on fire. That's why his skin's all white and his hair's black. And then after he killed Randy, he snapped, and when he came back from the hospital, he was pure white. He had a white shirt, a white hoodie, black pants. He came home and put a smile on.
So as I said in the beginning of this video, with the Jeff the Killer photo, I was going to explain the backstory of who that is, because that is actually a real person. And this photo was actually posted on, and someone on Reddit was actually able to use the Wayback Machine and tracked this photo to be a photo of just a young girl taking a selfie of herself in 2005, but she had posted it to 4chan. And if anybody knows anything about 4chan, it is literally the pits of hell of the internet. And so when she posted this photo, she received a lot of hate. A lot of people were calling her fat, and a lot of people were even making exaggerated photos of her, such as the Jeff the Killer photo. Now, there is like some speculation online that due to all of this hate, this young girl had actually offed herself, while other people say that she is still alive today. But the original photo of Jeff the Killer is just some girl that was taking a picture of herself and then got made fun of online for that. So there is no like dark, sinister witchcraft done to this photo. It's literally just like a deep fried pic of someone. So Donovan starts to tell the detectives about what creepypasta is, and he even goes on to name a couple of his favorite stories on creepypasta, such as Jeff the Killer, Smile Dog, Eyeless Jack, Ben Drowned, The Rake, and etc., and even claimed, quote, "It's really cool." One of Donovan's friends, who was questioned by police, actually said that Donovan did have a very weird obsession with Jeff the Killer, and this friend didn't even know who Jeff the Killer was, and Jeff the Killer was never mentioned, like, from Donovan to this friend. This friend actually found out when he looked on Donovan's phone, and Jeff the Killer was his wallpaper and his lock screen, and so this friend just kind of looked at that like, oh, maybe that's a, I don't know, like a character from a show that he likes. So he didn't really think too much of it at the time. So going back to Angie's interrogation, Angie would actually go on to say that she was at the house about an hour before the crime. And so she said that this day she was just over at Heidi's house helping her with a couple of chores, and she was downstairs, but Heidi and Donovan were upstairs. And she started to hear a little bit of yelling coming from upstairs. So she goes upstairs, and that's when she sees Heidi in the doorway of Donovan's room, and she's yelling at him. And she says to him, quote, "And don't even ask me for your damn phone because you're not getting it." So that's when Heidi is like, okay, what's going on? So she goes in there, she asks, and that's when Heidi looks to Angie and says, "I just found out that Donovan was sexting someone today, so I'm taking his phone away." So Angie looks at him and she's like, "Donovan, like what's that about?" And then after that, Angie just said that Heidi just said, "I'm tired of this," and then she walked away with Donovan's phone. And if you remember earlier in the crime, when I said that when Heidi went upstairs, she had her phone, but she also had Donovan's phone while trying to call the police. That was the reason she had Donovan's phone, because she had caught him sexting with someone that day. And so then after this argument, that's when Angie just decided to leave the household, kind of, let them figure out their problems. But then that is when about an hour later, Donovan would stab his stepmother to death. Now, 3 days after the crime, when all of this was being posted to the news and the media, the police actually received a message from Donovan's 8th grade teacher, because as I said, this kid was only 14 at the time. So he was still very young. He was in 8th grade. And apparently this 8th grade teacher had received a note from Donovan that Donovan had given to him in the middle of class, but he hadn't read it until he started seeing all these things about Donovan, and then it reminded him of this note that Donovan had given him. And this note would go on to say, quote, "My book is called The Bride Collector. So far, I have only read 28 pages of the book, and so far it's about a killer who has killed 4 beautiful women. He is called The Bride Collector. His real name is Quentin. A guy named Brad Rains is trying to figure out who he is. That is called dramatic irony. So far, I think the book is awesome. I like it because it's about murder. I am reading it because it's about murder. I like books about murder." The main character is named Brad Rains. He's a classy person. He has to have everything in order. He has a very fancy apartment, and the only reason why it's fancy is because he got an inheritance. He is part of the FBI, special agent. He is trying to figure out who the bride collector is. Quentin Gauld is the bride collector. He is very similar to Brad. They both are very classy. Quentin is very OCD, just like Brad. Quentin believes that he is the only person God chose to be supreme. He believes everybody is just quote unquote stage dressings. He is mentally ill but very smart. He kills because the women he meets loses her innocence. There are some connections in this book, mostly real world. A lot of people kill each other today. There's a lot of homicides and it won't be stopped. It can't be stopped. It's a good thing detectives are there to find the murders because they need to know they can't stop them. It's a part of human nature. Murder has always been a part of life, animals and humans alike. My question is, why is Quentin killing for God? He's killing for nothing. It's better to have another reason than him. I'm sorry, but I don't believe in God. And is it ridiculous to kill for him? That's why I hate the Crusades. At least kill for something that exists, right? Sincerely, Donovan Nicholas. So as you can see just from that letter, it seems like Donovan, again, he just straight up says that he likes books about murder. And for only being 14 years old, he has very sinister ideas about killing and violence and murder and calls it a way of like nature and human life and how animals and humans alike love to kill. So then in July of 2018, 2 years after the murder, so now Donovan is 16 years old, that is when he would be found guilty for murder and aggravated murder and was sentenced to life in prison with possibility of parole in 25 years. And so on June 15th of 2023, that is when, unfortunately, Donovan was able to get his sentencing overturned because he was claiming that he had his due process rights violated and tried to certify him as an adult instead of a minor. And due to this, he was actually later released. And so ever since last year, he was supposed to serve life in prison without possibility of parole in 25 years because of the murder of his stepmom, and here he is just walking away a couple years later, and even to this day he is still out and about somewhere in Champaign County. And yeah, that is the end of today's case. I hope you guys found this case interesting, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I would also love to hear all of your guys' comments and opinions about the case. Do you think that it's okay for Donovan to walk, or do you think he could have gotten more time? Personally, I feel like he should have gotten more time, but also, like, I don't even know if a psychiatric evaluation would really help, because if you have that need in you to kill and that evil part of you to kill, I don't think that's just going to go away with a couple of years of like therapy and real psychiatric help. But I don't really know. As I said, let me know in the comments below what you guys think about all of that. And yeah, that is all from me. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day today. Make sure to be safe out there. Make sure to get outside today, drink some water. And as always, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.